Ravendia is a legendary 5,000-year-old evil dragon who lives in a cave in the depths of the mountains in ancient China, where nobody dares to go unless they're really committed to being the best skeleton for Halloween. In reality, this massive dragon is a gentle giant and lives the life of a reclusive vegan by choice, probably after playing the good pacifist run on Undertale or seeing the sharks in Finding Nemo. One day, he is awoken from his peaceful slumber by a young girl named Reiko, who is on her knees and offers herself to him as a sacrifice in exchange for lending his power to defeat the demon lord that terrorizes humankind. She urges him to devour her, but our dragon isn't into lolis, so he frantically rejects her offer. He explains that he only likes eating veggies and doesn't want to kill her, but she keeps insisting, claiming that she's an orphan and no one will be sad if she dies. I'm not an orphan, but nobody would be sad if I died either. In the end, Ravendia convinces her that he has devoured her soul without killing her because he's cool like that. She is overjoyed to hear this and believes she's his disciple now that he has her soul. Now that there's no killing necessary, he offers Reiko a ride home. Anyway, Ravendia and Reiko reach her village and the villagers wet their pants upon seeing him. After ensuring that the villagers will not hurt her out of gratitude for bringing him to their side, he plans on hiding in his little cave for a few hundred years until the villagers forget all about him. Suddenly, some jackass throws a stone in his face, causing him to roar out in pain and make the villagers panic over making the evil dragon angry. The culprit reveals himself to be a rowdy young boy named Ryan who has a crush on Reiko, and is furious that the dragon dared to devour her soul. Ravendia's life flashes before his eyes as he prepares himself for a painful concussion while the boy charges at him with a bat. Thankfully, the villagers tackle him down to the ground and beg him for forgiveness. He starts sobbing and begs Ravendia to return Reiko's soul and take his instead, since he was originally supposed to be the sacrifice but wasn't allowed to do so because he is the village's heir. Reiko simply walks up to him with cold eyes and tells him never to act rudely towards the dragon again since she is his devoted disciple. Ryan's little simp heart gets crushed. The situation gets too awkward for Ravendia to deal with, so he tries to make a quick exit, but before he can, the village is invaded by a pack of 40 dark wolves, ferocious monsters that can produce clones from their shadows. Nobody is more scared than Ravendia, who has no intention of dying in this village but is peer pressured by the people to face the wolves. He first tries the classic intimidation tactic to scare the wolves away, but they don't budge and get even more aggressive. His life is about to meet an embarrassing end after 5,000 years, but suddenly, Reiko vicks on his back, believing she has unlocked within herself some of the evil dragon's strength after becoming his disciple. To Ravendia's shock, she unleashes a burst of magic that surpasses even the greatest wizards he's witnessed in his long life. With her newfound powers and expert knife skills, she massacres the wolves. After defeating them all, she gives a sweet smile to him and thanks him for lending 1/1,000,000th of his strength to help her eradicate the worthless creatures. Ravendia is left speechless. The thing is, Ravendia cannot miss the premiere of his favorite anime on Crunchyroll, but Reiko's village is a long way from home and has geo-restrictions on his show. Well, it's a good thing he subscribed to Surfshark VPN, the sponsor of this video. Surfshark VPN lets you access content on streaming websites that are blocked in your region by letting you easily change your IP address within an instant to locations where they're available. No more FOMO. It's definitely served us well for making these videos because we need to watch a lot of anime. But that's not all. You can get your own bodyguard dragon on the internet through Surfshark's state-of-the-art encryption and a strict no-log policy, which adds another layer of security to your internet activity and ensures they remain hidden from prying eyes. Say goodbye to worrying about your sensitive data falling into the wrong hands, because whether it's streaming, browsing, gaming, or even online shopping, Surfshark VPN has got your back, ensuring you and your waifu's online safety and anonymity. If you want even more protection surfing the rough waters of the internet, Surfshark also has an antivirus that offers constant protection in the background so that you're safe from supervillain viruses and blocks unauthorized access to your camera, so you can finally get rid of that duct tape. You can use our code AniRoll to avail an exclusive discount, plus 3 months for free. Later, he singles out Ryan to tell them the truth about Reiko's powers in hopes that he will help her. Instead, he suspects the dragon of clearly lying to him so that he can dump all the burden of facing the demon lord on his beloved Reiko. However, sweet Reiko pulls her knife on him for being rude to her master again and ties him up. Ravendia diffuses the situation by trying to remind her that they're supposed to be friends, but she scoffs at this statement, saying Ryan repeatedly used to try to make her flee the village with clothes he made for her all because he selfishly wanted to become the dragon's sacrifice. Women. She loots his house while he's still bound and returns with one of the magician outfits he made for her. He starts blushing after seeing her in it, exposing himself to be the submissive simp that he is. She mounts Ravendia's back and promises Ryan that she and the dragon will kill the demon lord and restore peace to the village, and urges Ravendia to fly. Except he doesn't know how to fly. Reiko summons the winds to lift him up and forces him to fly straight to the demon lord's lair. Knowing he has no chance against the enemy, he tries to stall by telling her that it would be wiser to assemble a small army of warriors from a nearby town to build up an even greater force. Reiko thinks he's a tactical genius and uses her clairvoyant eyes to direct them northeastward to a city called Paledona, which is populated with excellent adventure guilds. Ravendia is astonished at first to see the beautifully lit city of Paledona on the horizon, which is in direct contrast to the gloomy and dark village that Reiko came from. However, they quickly realize the beautiful lights are actually raging fires engulfing the city as the locals struggle to fend off ugly demon minions. As soon as they spot the legendary evil dragon Ravendia, they direct their arrows at him, and he can do nothing but sweat bullets in return. Reiko boldly faces the approaching arrows and demons and blows a destructive magical spell into the air, which obliterates all the demons around them in an instant. The dumbass adventurers recall Jurassic Park and think if they stand completely still, Ravendia won't be able to see them. A hot redhead, General Aliente, emerges from the crowd, acknowledges that the dragon helped them defeat their invaders, and requests them both to help save the city. She points out that Paledona was initially being attacked by swarms of bird-like monsters, which the adventurers were able to handle fairly well. However, the corpses of the birds turn into self-regenerating skeleton monsters that set fire to everything they come across. Despite being weak in combat, the pesky skeletons are in too great a number and run away as soon as they see a warrior. She requests Ravendia to reduce them to ashes without leaving any remains. Of course, he's too scared to face them, so he leaves it to Reiko, claiming that defeating them will be a good training exercise for her. Hiked up, she grows a pair of wings from her ass and turns every single bird monster into a nice Thanksgiving roast dinner. While she does a great job of becoming KFC's Employee of the Year, Ravendia uses the wisdom he has acquired over the millennia of his life to deduce that there must be a demon leader who is manipulating every corpse within its sight, and for it to do so, it must be at a high vantage point from where it can look down on the entire city. Aliet thanks him and immediately dispatches her men to investigate every tower and roof in the city. Reiko returns to Ravendia's side after defeating all the demons, waiting for her next orders, and he prescribes her a good rest. She curls up next to him, and he covers her from the rain as she sleeps while considering leaving her under General Aliet's care, believing her to be a good woman. Reiko dreams of one of the memories she has of her father, causing her to cry in her sleep, but she is comforted by the warmth of Ravendia. Later that night, he directly asks Alient if he can leave Reiko in the city. She doesn't trust him enough to agree yet and asks him why he betrayed the demon lord since the evil dragon Ravendia is meant to be one of his generals. He tries to explain the truth to her and convince her that Reiko's powers are her own and not given to her by him. However, she has the same reaction as Ryan and shames him for shoving such a big task of defeating the demon lord to a little girl. When he has no other justification for betraying the demon lord, she draws her sword at him and reveals she is actually a loyal swordsman of the demon lord. What? She charges at him, but before her swing can slice him into the past tense, Reiko blocks her attack with her handy knife. The two dance with their blades, sending sparks flying in all directions. However, Reiko is unable to gain the upper hand because she exhausted her magic taking down the monsters, and her combat skills are nowhere close to Aliente's. Once she's done messing around with the kid, she makes a sweeping attack, which forces Reiko to jump up. However, this is merely a feint, and she launches her real attack by getting behind Reiko, who is in midair and unable to change direction. She slashes her across the back, causing her to have a rough landing on the ground. With Reiko out of the picture, she faces Ravendia, whose balls have retracted into his body by now. He's convinced nothing can save him now and stays still as she swings his sword at him. He feels a blinding pain across his body and awaits his death, but nothing happens, and he opens his eyes to see his body completely unwounded. She reveals her sword doesn't inflict any wounds on its victims, only pain. Ravendia is no masochist, though, and requests her to use a normal sword to give him a quick death. Alient continues attacking him and finally stops once she's satisfied. Eventually believing that he truly is a weak vegan dragon, she reveals that she was simply lying about being one of the demon lord's warriors as a test to gauge his strength. While Reiko is still unconscious, she advises him to keep his weakness a secret because Reiko believes in him, and there's no knowing what will happen if such a powerful young wizard loses what she's devoted to. If that's not enough, Ravendia's bounty is second only to the demon lord, but if people found out he was weak, he'd be tailed by countless troublesome bounty hunters. Ravendia appreciates having his head for himself, so he takes her advice and begs her for a solution. She whispers something into his ears and then tells him to tell Reiko the fight between them was only a dream. The next day, Reiko and Ravendia awake inside a cozy inn room, but Reiko screams after seeing the evil dragon Ravendia shrunk to the size of a dog. The truth is that Alien force-fed him a potion to shrink him into a more convenient size to live in the city without destroying it like it's made out of Legos. However, he lies that he did it himself to prevent himself from getting back pain from looking down on everyone. Ryan marches into Paledona, demanding to be taken to the evil dragon as he is a hero from the South hellbent on reversing his village's mistake of unleashing Ravendia to the world. He's humble real quick when a loose rock tumbles down at him from one of the ruined buildings. Luckily, Mommy Alien saves him by stopping its fall with her bare hands and tells him the most basic necessity of heroes is to be alert constantly. After overhearing some of the adventurers gossiping about her being on par with Ravendia in a fight yesterday, he begs her to be his disciple. She warns him that her training is known to be worse than hell, but he is determined to take Ravendia down. She immediately makes him drag a heavy cart by himself, whipping him to keep him on his feet. When he can no longer go any further, she shoves down a gross-looking medicine to rejuvenate his strength. Just how much can he withstand for darling Reiko? Meanwhile, Ravendia and Reiko leave Paledona to continue on their journey by foot. However, his legs soon give out from starvation because he can't reveal to her that he's vegan. On one of their stops, they encounter a trio of human traffickers who look forward to selling her and Ravendia in the black market. Thinking he is some unknown, overgrown lizard species, Ravendia convinces her not to kill him because if it's found out humans were killed at the hands of him, he will never have hopes of securing peace with them. The traffickers hurl insults at them non-stop, causing even the ultra-pacifist Ravendia to get tired of their bullshit, so he whispers to Reiko that she can give them just a little nudge as a lesson. She blasts the leader into oblivion, instantly causing the bandits to shut up and surrender. With their injured leader in tow, they lead Ravendia and Reiko straight to the cave where they have kept the rest of their slaves. While Reiko releases them, Ravendia notices another much better cave right next to theirs and questions why they chose the inferior one as their base. The traffickers tremble in fear at the sight of the other cave and claim that evil resides inside it. He can't get it out of his mind though, so he gives Reiko her second training assignment, which is to escort all the slaves to the nearest town for shelter and hand over the traffickers to the local authorities. As soon as she and the others have gone, he joyfully skips into the other cave, looking forward to feasting on his favorite type of shade-loving moss. It's not long after he gallops into the cave when a hole forms under his feet, and he falls right into it. He opens his eyes to see the terrifying sight of a skeleton in front of him. Black mist gathers in front of him to form a dark, sinister robed figure with a white Joker-like smile. He lets out an evil laugh and says in a voice as deep as Corpse Husband that finally, after years of waiting, a living being has entered his cave. All Ravendia can do is cry out for Reiko to save him for like the 10th time. He waits for the creek to give him a gruesome death, but is surprised when he simply offers him an apple to eat. The robed figure turns out to be a friendly being who only wishes for companionship. This is a reminder to never judge a book by its cover, guys. He lays out an all-you-can-eat decadent vegetarian feast for his guest Ravendia to gorge himself on. While the dragon stuffs his face with leafy greens, he notices the spirit looks rather depressed. He looks up at the ancient paintings on the cave walls and realizes that the spirit before him is the god of hunting, who came down to Earth to teach humans how to hunt and fend for themselves. Humankind cherished and worshipped him above all else for this, but once they've mastered the art of hunting, they dumped him and moved on to other things, just like my ex. Now he lives a lonely life inside this gloomy cave because he can only leave it when someone needs him to learn hunting. God of Hunting is a long name, so let's call him Loner. Anyway, Ravendia eats up his sob story and hesitantly volunteers to learn hunting out of pity. Immediately after he utters the words, Loner gets excited as if he were waiting for him to take the bait, and they leave the cave. His personality makes a complete 180 as he laughs like a madman and announces that he will teach Ravendia everything he needs to know about hunting within 3 hours. First up is physical training because of course a hunter can't be expected to be any good if he can't catch up to his dinner. He makes Ravendia drop and give 200 sit-ups, but they soon find out he's physically incapable of doing so because he has spines on his back. Loner's mind gets completely blown that his training has some flaw in it and quickly moves on to the next part. Second is balance training because a hunter must never lose his footing unless he wants to become dinner for his dinner. He makes Ravendia cross a narrow log bridge which snaps under his weight. Again, he can't believe his eyes because it's the first time the bridge has ever broken in all his millennia of coaching. He rejoins the bridge with magic and makes Ravendia cross it again and again because it keeps snapping. The only thing Ravendia learns with this lesson is just how much of a fatty he is. He horribly fails no matter what Loner tries to teach him, from archery training to trap making. The last straw is when he sets off the explosive obstacle course by growing in size after some of Alanit's potion wears off. Loner falls into despair over failing to make his student graduate even after 8 hours. Ravendia tries to console him by saying that he's a hopeless student anyway who's used to failing. However, Loner can't accept this because he believes there are no bad students, only bad masters. Unable to deal with the thought of not bettering his apprentice in any way, he magically sharpens his claws and declares his student has graduated. After that, Loner makes a grand exit and disappears back into the depths of his cave. Exhausted from a day full of training, Ravendia falls asleep against the tree next to him. The next day, he's woken up by Reiko, who has returned from her expedition. The little gremlin reports that there's a nearby big and prosperous city called Selenen, brimming with potential, and it's only protected by a sad excuse of a moat. She recommends conquering the city for its resources before the Demon Lord's army snatches it up. Ravendia does his best to stop her from straight up invading the city, suggesting they should save their energy and simply walk into the city to claim it. He finds it weird how such a big city is only protected by a narrow moat, so she uses her clairvoyant eyes to detect a magical protective barrier around the city and narrows the source down to the so-called Saint of Water residing inside the city. Before they can set foot into the city, the saint's voice telepathically echoes in Ravendia's mind, warning him against entering Selenen because he's not welcome. He gets afraid and almost changes his mind about entering when suddenly the saint's intimidating voice transforms into frightened screams. Reiko did not come all the way here to be played and bullies the saint into lowering the barrier.
Call an ambulance! Call an ambulance! But not for me!
Ravendia feels guilty for Reiko's misconduct and is eager to meet the saint and clear up any misunderstanding with her. Reiko gets ticked off that all the civilians seem to be shooting daggers at him, so she offers to poke their eyes out. However, he instead tells her that it would be far more prudent to be in disguise, claiming that the art of disguise is a valuable skill for the disciples of the evil dragon. She swallows her embarrassment like a good disciple and announces to the crowd around them that they are from a traveling circus and that Ravendia is her trained pet dragon. Immediately, the locals drop their guard out of relief and one of them explains the tale of the city. A time long, long ago, this land was a barren desert that was unfriendly to all forms of life. However, one day, the Saint of Water arrived and blessed the land with rich streams and fertile soil, allowing the growth of the now prosperous city of Selenen. Hence, the people of Selenen worship her as their local deity. Ravendia looks forward to staying here since it's much safer than hunting down the Demon Lord, but knows it is crucial to clear things up with the Saint if they want a harmonious stay. Bringing his bulldog Reiko would only make things worse, so he decides to take a walk alone after telling her to rest in the hotel room. He looks for the saint everywhere, but she's nowhere to be found. The search makes old Ravendia thirsty, and he switches his attention to finding drinking water. He enters a pub to see a pitcher full of water and gladly walks toward it, but before he can grab it, the pitcher falls down the table. Out from the pitcher, the saint who was hiding from the terrifying dragon quickly scrambles away without him seeing because she mistakes his disappointment for seething rage. Next, he sluggishly walks toward a barn, where he sees a trough full of water. His eyes light up, and he prances toward it only to find no water in it yet again, as if it was a mirage in the middle of the desert. No matter where the saint runs off to hide, he seems to follow with the intent of swallowing her, and both of their days turn out to be living nightmares. By dusk, Ravendia is beyond exhausted, and he plops by the riverbank with an empty stomach and parched throat. Sadly, the locals told him the river has an anti-demon barrier mounted by the saint, so he can't drink from it. Thankfully, a group of kids approaches him and hears his rumbling stomach. One of the girls kindly offers him an apple, and Ravendia gratefully opens his mouth to accept it. However, the saint mistakes this as him wanting to bite the kid's head off and finally shows herself to protect her. He tries to explain he was only after the apple, but it's hopeless, and she makes the kids return home. They don't even leave the apple behind for him to eat later. The saint courageously faces him now and is ready to square up. Ravendia mutters, and he only cares about getting to the hotel to get some rest. The saint's eyes widen and she asks if that means that he won't destroy the city as long as he goes to the hotel. After convincing her that is indeed the case, she lets out a sigh of relief and escorts him there. Once they reach the hotel, he reminds her to reinstall the citywide barrier to ensure the city's protection. Realizing she forgot such an important thing, she rushes to get that done. Upon returning to the room, Reiko says she doesn't trust the locals because they worship the saint, who is actually a demon that can control water and mud. Ravendia reasons with her that she worships him even though he's supposed to be an evil dragon, so she must not judge the saint before she meets her. She finally relaxes and they fall asleep side by side. The next morning, they are abruptly woken up by the saint, who is poorly disguised as a maid and tries to manipulate them into skipping town first thing in the morning. She presents them with a breakfast of garbage and leftovers, emphasizing the importance of recycling and hoping to drive them away. Reiko's short fuse explodes and she tackles her to the ground for daring to insult her master. The maid quickly turns into water and slithers away, screaming for help. Ravendia sighs disappointedly and sits her down to explain that he wants his disciple to behave in a way that is befitting of someone with power since it's a huge responsibility. She shouldn't pick useless fights all the time. Until she learns to control herself, she's ordered not to use her powers without his permission, except for self-defense. After that lesson, he encourages her to play with the kids her age that offered to feed him yesterday, since it's an important skill to be familiar with human customs. Reiko obediently accepts the mission and goes off to play the hell out of the kids. Seconds after she leaves his side, Ravendia goes and gets himself sucked into another secondary location by stepping on a puddle outside the hotel room. He gets teleported to a deep pool of water, with the saint holding him underwater, determined to pull a kamikaze that'll end both their lives for the sake of protecting Selianen. His cries for Reiko to save him fall on nobody's ears. Reiko senses his aura disappear, but decides the higher priority is to complete the mission assigned to her. The other kids flock around her and are eager to find out what tricks she does in the traveling circus. However, they're disappointed that she didn't bring the pet dragon with her because he was very cute when they played with him yesterday. They all decide to play a game to look for the cute tiny dragon. Reiko is surprised to learn that besides the terrifying evil dragon she follows, there also exist cute dragons that play with kids, so she agrees to help look for it. The hunt is interrupted when the evil dragon descends upon the city and roars out that he will take it down for the demon lord. Reiko mistakes this dragon to be the cute little dragon that the kids were referring to and menacingly asks him to play with her. He tries to brush her off, but she stops him by grabbing his tail and cutely asks him to play again. Possessing the dignity of a warrior of the Demon King's army, he accepts her challenge and gets ready to set an example to the other people of his strength. However, before he can even make his move, he is lifted up by tiny Reiko, who wants to play ball with him. She throws him across town and he lands on his ass, totally humiliated. He unravels his wing and storms off high into the sky to destroy the city with one powerful blow. However, a shiver runs down his spine when he hears the voice of the petite girl behind him. He turns around to see her floating above him with her own set of wings. She grabs him by the tail again and swings him around and releases him to throw him to the ground. She still hasn't had enough and continues to throw him around like he's her plaything. A locust that sits on the dragon's back gets assaulted by another mist demon on the dragon and turns into a bigger locust that sneakily flies away without anyone seeing. Meanwhile, the saint struggles to keep Ravendia in her arms as the magical shockwaves that Reiko sends off are so huge that they cause tremors in the water. She finally loses her grip on him and he reaches the surface of the river, where a magical duck floating ring pops up to keep him afloat. The saint doesn't give up so easily and raises a giant wave to submerge him, but the ring turns into a balloon to evade it. Staying the way of Ravendia recalls that just like the fire-laying bird demons that the demon lord had in his army, he also had a water-manipulating demon. This makes him realize that Reiko was right about her hunch of the saint actually being a demon. She doesn't like it when he confronts her about being one of the demon lord's followers, so she traps him in a water jail by using all of Selianen's water. He's about to suffocate to death, but suddenly he starts growing in size and realizes Alien's portion is finally wearing off. He increases in size so much that she loses control of her jail, and it bursts open, releasing both of them back into the city square. After he recovers from the fall, he finds the saint crying because she's heartbroken that she can't protect her people despite her greatest efforts. She surrenders and agrees to return to the demon lord's army on the condition that he doesn't harm any of the citizens of Selianen. Ravendia takes up the role of a therapist yet again and comforts her by saying that her roots as a demon don't matter because she's brought the people of Selianen peace, prosperity, and happiness for centuries, so she's worthy of the title of saint. She cheers up eventually and finally believes Ravendia to be an innocent and harmless vegan dragon. She realizes the mess they created in the city and excuses herself to restore it to its normal state. Likewise, Ravendia is about to go looking for Reiko, but notices the saint stop dead in her tracks. He goes up to her and notices a death locust, which is supposed to be a low-ranking type of demon, on her head. This causes him to immediately worry because the city is supposed to be protected by a barrier that blocks low-ranking demons, so something must have happened to compromise it. The mist demon uses the death locust as a vehicle to reach the saint and speak into her mind. He brainwashes her to drop her farce, reveal her real self as a demon, and serve his army the way she was always meant to. She gives in to his manipulation and her eyes glow red with evil intent. She uses her demonic powers to flood the city with swampy mud. However, to her and Ravendia's surprise, the people aren't afraid, but rather consider this another blessing of fertile soil from their kind deity Saint of Water. They start playing in the mud and singing praises in her name. This pisses Knockoff Aqua off and she creates another giant ball of mud to smother everyone. Horrified, Ravendia yells out Reiko's name before the damage can be done. Upon hearing her master, she immediately drops the actually evil dragon and flies right toward him, destroying Saint's mud ball in an instant without even realizing it. The civilians bathe in a second shower of fertile mud and believe they hit the lottery. Ravendia finds Saint on the ground having a breakdown over the humans not finding her threatening even though she's a demon. He offers to hear her out in hopes of comforting her. She reveals that when she joined the Demon Lord's army, she was belittled by the other members for being too weak and young. Determined to prove herself, she decided to terrorize a group of humans in the desert one day by surrounding them with pillars of water. However, instead of cowering in fear, their faces were full of happiness as they felt the sweet taste of water on their lips after a long time. Not getting the reaction she wanted, she unleashed a bunch of wet soil at them. But they graciously accepted that as well because it was the first time they laid eyes on fertile soil that could grow crops. Rather than running away from her for being a demon, they called her a holy saint for bringing them the stuff of life and started worshipping her. Gradually, the people turned the barren land into the glorious city of Selyanen while revering their dear saint for her water and soil. Eventually, she embraced her new role as protector of the city and forgot about her duties as a demon lord's army member. Now in the present, she thinks she doesn't deserve their admiration because she's a monster. Ravendia sees himself in her because all his life he's defied the role of the evil dragon he was expected to take. He sits beside her and gently reassures her that what matters is not who she is but who she wants to be. So he asks her if she has the choice between being the demon that brings destruction to Selyanen or being the protector of it. Which will she choose? These words reach her, and the red haze in her eyes finally disappears, returning Saint to her normal self. While he pats her head comfortingly, he feels a sharp jab on his hand and wonders what it was he felt. An ominous voice bellows at the back of his head, urging him to reveal his true bloodthirsty dragon nature. However, it goes silent as soon as it comes, and he guesses he's probably imagining things because he's too old to be so stressed. Reiko says that she finally understood the purpose of him making her play with the kids here. It was to make her realize how the people of this town are on her own, and she's come to the conclusion that they're all no-good oafs if they blindly follow this incompetent saint. Hence, she realizes that Selyanen is too unworthy of the evil dragon's reign, and they should keep moving. Ravendia likes the peace of the city but agrees to depart because they cause enough trouble already. They try to slip away without a word, but they're confronted by Sink at the moat, who doesn't allow them to leave without saying goodbye and insists they at least stay until the festival worshipping her is over in a few days, claiming that she only requests this because the children are excited to see their favorite traveling circus do perform. Reiko is about to firmly reject, but Ravendia shuts her up and agrees to stay until the festival is over. Meanwhile, the Mist Demon continues to worm through Ravendia's brain, trying to uncover his hidden darkness, but is surprised at just how well hidden it is. He is happy that they're staying even longer in the city because that will give him more time to turn Ravendia to the dark side and conquer Selyanen for the Demon Lord. What happened to the actually evil silver dragon, you ask? Well, after Reiko left him, he's been traumatized and developed a split personality disorder. He wanders the outskirts of the city, alternatively roaring that he'll destroy the place, and then immediately turning into an Annie, May schoolgirl, and groveling that he's a good dragon. One of Paledona Guild's scouts discovers the silver dragon having a confusing rampage around Selyanen, sees the destruction and mud around the city, and believes it's in danger. The news reaches Aliant and her disciple Ran. Ryan is quick to believe it's Ravendia, and begs her to let him go and enact revenge on him. However, she orders him to stay and continue his training until he's actually strong enough and goes to check out the situation herself because the whole thing smells fishy. Over at Selyanen, the festival is so beautiful that even Reiko is dazzled. Ravendia tells her to treat herself to whatever food she pleases and uses the chance to slip away and fill his own stomach. He can't queue up for the delicious human food being sold at the stall because he needs to maintain his image, but he finds a sheep pen where the sheep are munching on fresh grass. However, by the time he gets there, all the grass is over. The farm's little girl comes over with more grass and feeds them to him. While he gobbles the greens up, Reiko appears in front of the pen, and the sight of her evil, fearsome dragon master feasting on grass fed by a little girl is so shattering that she drops her lollipop. He brays like a sheep in panic, and she gladly accepts that as proof that she mistook a sheep for her noble master because she's tired, finally understanding why he keeps making her rest. She briskly walks away as if she saw nothing to maintain her sense of self. Now that's one hell of a coping mechanism. Soon after she's gone, the sheep herd around the girl and eat all of the grass she was holding, leaving nothing for Ravendia. This frustrated him because he really wanted to eat more. The Mist Demon inside him emerges again, finally sensing a hint of darkness from him. He fuels the fire and urges Ravendia to revisit his darkest deeds and bring back those feelings. With a whole lot of guilt, he recalls that he once came across a tree with super ripe fruits, and they looked so delicious that he hoarded them all without leaving any for others. The Mist Demon is flabbergasted about how this is his darkest deed and watches in awe as Ravendia uses that darkness to fight his sheep but ends up getting defeated. The darkest aura dissipates from him and he comes back to his senses. The kind little girl apologizes to him for letting all the sheep eat the grass and then comes up with a bright idea that they should go to the silver dragon outside the city who hasn't eaten either and bring him along on a feeding spree at the grass fields. She takes him to the other dragon, which makes Ravendia finally understand what Reiko meant when she said she was playing with a cute dragon yesterday. He tells the girl they're colleagues from the same circus and asks her to leave them so he can speak to him privately. Once she's gone, he apologizes to the dragon for anything that Reiko did that might have upset or offended him. The silver dragon gets enraged when he hears of Reiko again and decides to enact revenge by killing Ravendia, but before making his strike, he turns into a good dragon and asks to play. Reiko has earned the honor of having a permanent spot in his therapy sessions. Ravendia pets him, and the mist demon transfers from him back to the silver dragon, allowing him to possess him and turn him completely evil. He stomps his foot hard on the ground, alarming Ravendia and causing him to notice the tangible ill intentions rushing out of the silver dragon. He roars out that he's the ruler of the wild winds and creates a giant orb of lightning to attack Ravendia. As usual, Ravendia curls into a ball and yells out Reiko's name to come to save him. And as always, Reiko unleashes her wings and zooms in front of her master. The mist demon realizes that the strongest being in this town isn't Ravendia, but is actually this little girl and regrets not possessing her instead of Sync. He now plans to provoke her to make contact with the dragon so that he can possess her. His first few attempts by trying to strike her fail because she dodges them all with Mario jumps. However, she picks up one of the dragon's hands and swings him around as before, giving the mist demon enough time to infect her. The silver dragon drops unconscious and Ravendia goes to praise Reiko, but notices her in some sort of trance. The mist demon is overjoyed at succeeding in his plan because with her power, he can rule not only this city but the entire world. He tries to make her go to the dark side as he did with Saint and the silver dragon, but he doesn't realize she owns the dark side. Behind him, a giant Reiko looms behind him with black dragon wings. She creates a tornado made of so much dark energy that it sucks the mist demon inside. In his last moments, he wonders how she blindly obeys the useless Ravendia's words despite possessing so much dark power. In her trance-like state, she revisits the painful memory of seeing his father being killed by demons. The flood of trauma causes her to fall into despair and unleash a tremendous amount of magic at once, like a nuclear explosion. Reiko did it before Oppenheimer, guys. After the explosion, Ravendia opens his eyes to see everything before the horizon destroyed except for him. Reiko floats above him, surrounded by a ray of electrifying blue light, looking more and more like a dragon by the minute. The strong air currents start sweeping him off his feet, and he's saved just in time by General Alien. She explains that her worst fears have come true. She detected a great demonic energy sleeping within Reiko when they first came to Paledona, but heard good nature and will suppress them until now when some force has broken the seal inside her. Now she is transforming into a full-fledged demon who will act on her basic instincts in front of their eyes. She screams out that she will destroy Sync first for continually disrespecting the great Ravendia. Sync cries and wets her pants, begging Ravendia and Alien to help her. Alien protects the civilians by stopping a giant boulder from hitting a group of them, after which she orders them to evacuate immediately. Once they're gone, she boldly stares at Reiko above for a while until she suddenly turns in the other direction and runs, yelling at Ravendia and Sync to do the same. Ravendia is in disbelief, but Alienta points out that nobody can defeat such a powerful force, and besides, he wanted to get rid of her in the first place, so he's finally getting what he wanted. He admits that's what he wanted at first and rationalizes to himself that now that Reiko is so strong, no one will harm her, but deep down, he knows this isn't right. He eventually gathers the courage he never had before and stops running. The two ladies think he's gone mad, but he declares he won't just leave her alone and starts slowly walking toward her while she's casting another round of explosive magic. For the past 5,000 years of his life, he always sought to protect himself first whenever danger arose, but this time he is determined not to escape. He walks headfirst into Reiko's magic spell, causing him to lose consciousness. Well, a plus for effort. Mommy Alien smacks him awake and says he did nothing to reduce her growing power and killing intent, but he did show them a way to possibly defeat her. Without elaborating any further, she grabs his tail and swings his body around to use as a shield to absorb Reiko's magical orbs. Miraculously, he doesn't have a single scratch on him, which confirms Alien's suspicion that despite Reiko being totally out of her mind, she hasn't stopped thinking of Ravendia as the great evil dragon, so her attacks have no effect on him. This proves that there's a morsel of humanity left within her, and Ravendia is the only one who can get through to her. She throws him right at one of her vortex spells, and it seems to work at first, but ultimately, he starts falling back to the ground. Luckily, Sync prevents him from turning into chum by surrounding him with a bubble before he hits the ground. Reiko continues to transform into a dragon, black scales erupting from all over her body. Alien realizes her new plan won't work because Ravendia's reduced size makes him too light to resist being blown away by the strong winds. Hence, they have no choice but to stick to the original plan, which is to sacrifice Saint and use the opportunity to let the others escape. Obviously, Saint isn't selfless enough to be a fan of this plan. Ravendia comes up with another plan and asks Alien to stall for him until he can act on it. Next, he asks Saint to give him a hand, and she has no choice but to agree unless she wants to become past tense. He makes her absorb all the shrinking potion from his body while Alien does her best to keep Reiko away. Once he's back to his original giant size, he directs Alien to lure Reiko to the silver dragon. Luckily, Reiko's brain is so fried that she gives up the advantage of a ranged fight and engages her in close combat, which Alien specializes in. Once she's above the body of the silver dragon, Ravendia fashions a slingshot using the special claws Loner gave him and anchors it to the wings of the silver dragon. Saint pulls him back and releases, flinging him toward Reiko. He infiltrates her magical barrier and knocks her back, urging her to come back to him. The impact makes Reiko get a flashback of another memory when the crew members of the ship they were on accuse her and her father of being monsters in disguise who destroyed the ship. Despite being gravely injured by the demon attack from the previous memories, her loving father gently tied her hair with a red ribbon and assured her that she did nothing wrong and that even though life would be full of misunderstandings like this, she would find someone who understands her and be kind to her. After that, he died in her arms. The memory makes her awaken and return to her normal state. Ravendia holds her in his arms and redoes the ribbon on her hair, apologizing for not tying it neatly because of his clumsiness. She smiles and thanks him. He tells her they caused a lot of trouble this time, so they must go and apologize to the people of Celadon. Luckily, everything took place on the outskirts, so the city center was unharmed. The citizens are so optimistic that they get in gear to continue the festival after repairs. Ravendia gives his favorite disciple, Reiko, the order to enjoy the festival to her heart's content, to which she gladly agrees. In the end, the gentle vegan dragon Riviana will always be her great evil dragon. That's it for this video. Make sure to like and subscribe and watch this next video on screen.